Dr. O, every Monday in the Center Square, you write the week ahead column for under the Everyday Economics flag. You're pretty close on the jobs report this week. I'll give you credit. I mean, I think it came in a little higher than you had thought. Any other victories that you would choose to claim from recent prognostication or looks ahead before we get started at talking about what's going on in the economic world this week?
Well, yeah, I mean the labor market, right? The labor market, the housing market was the other one. The fact that everybody was talking doom and gloom. Look, fears of a housing market and labor market collapse post Liberation Day were grossly exaggerated. And I think I heard from everyone, including some very talented friends of mine, that that the housing market was going to collapse.
Yep.
And that this spring home shopping season was canceled, and they were wrong. They were absolutely wrong.
Not to get off track, but you and I have both been in the real estate market recently. You're successfully converted. I'm just getting on the on-ramp here. And your search was aggressive. Things that you were even trying to see were gone in some cases before you could make an inquiry.
I got outbid twice.
Yes. Yeah, it was almost like a throwback to 2022, 2021, whichever those years were. It was just completely like FOMO. Everybody was gripped by FOMO, and I'm dealing with it now, where I'm looking at a specific market, and by the time I make the call, the property's either already gone, or in some cases it was gone before it was even listed. That's very interesting. So, part of that would be interest rates. That has been, for some, like a gate to getting into the housing market, maybe steering some people away. But this seems like the gate is open right now. The Federal Reserve itself is going to meet this week, and we're going to get word from the Fed. Chairman Jerome Powell is going to speak. What do you think he's going to do? He's going to hold the line, right? I mean, we're not going to get any movement on rates, are we?
Absolutely. I think he's going to hold the line, but the Fed should be very cautious. Labor market slowdowns are very rarely linear. And I said it earlier, on the previous show that we taped. Employers will hoard workers. Before every recession, they hold on. Hiring rates fall. Layoffs remain low until they don't anymore.
Yeah.
And it's very sudden. Right? And then you start to see layoffs accelerating rapidly, and you start to see the unemployment rates rise fast. And so this was a good jobs report this past week. The Fed's going to look at that and say, okay, this is good. We were right to hold on tight. The Fed is right to focus on growth as opposed to inflation right now. Inflation's still moving in the right direction. The labor market is not going to be a threat. Inflation expectations rising in the consumer survey, that's not showing up in what investors are actually doing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't expect wage growth to start accelerating because consumers think that prices will be higher in the future or anything like that.
Can we talk about wage growth real quick? When we were talking earlier, about the jobs report, there was a graphic that was in that CNBC story that we referenced. And it's a pretty good chart, and it shows, of course, this is coming out of COVID, and there's a tremendous amount of inflation, like up and under these numbers, right? That at one point in January, or between January and April, so let's just call it, March of 2022, year over year wage growth at that point was above 5.75%, Right now, we're looking at, the April number, April 2025 number at 3.8%. So that chart, as you watch it, it comes down like stairs on a staircase without fail, with only a little bit of bumping. In January 2024, it went up slightly, but since then it's gone down. It actually has been lower than what it is now. That wage growth got below 3.75% in July 2024, and now is sitting, as I said, at 3.8% as of the April measure.
Yeah, that's right. And it's come down. It's come down for sure. But the good news is inflation has also come down, right? Consumer price growth has eased. The bad news is, that if wage growth eases faster than price growth, then consumers' purchasing power falls a little bit, right?
All right.
And so I think that's what you got to be worried about. I think that inflation is not likely to accelerate, but it's probably going to remain relatively where it is for now. I think growth could be concerning because we know that trade wars essentially hurt growth. And how do we know that? Well, I mean, I could talk about the mechanism. I've talked about it quite a bit. When producers face higher prices, then they try to pass on those price increases to consumers. But if consumers are already tapped out, what tends to happen is they have to absorb those price increases, those cost increases into their profit margins. And if profits, and of course, businesses do whatever they can to protect those profits, right? Those profit margins. And so where do you think they start to look for cuts? In their labor force, in their workers. And so they start cutting jobs in order to protect those profit margins. And so I expect that if you continue to see a ton of uncertainty, I expect that if you don't see a major resolution on the tariff front, that you could start to see layoffs finally start to increase slightly in the second half of this year, and of course we don't want to see that because the unemployment rate increases don't usually happen in a nice and orderly fashion.
Yeah. Well, we're at about 8 minutes, right now, and I mean, and you and I we try to keep these to 10. But I want to ask you.
So let's finish with the Fed. What is the Fed going to do? The Fed is going to hold the line for now.
Okay.
But I think the Fed will remain very cautious, and I think we potentially could see the first Fed rate cut in June, at the June meeting.
Okay. All right. Well, that's interesting, and I did see in the last 24 hours that China said it's evaluating the possibility of trade talks with the United States, which is about as close to any news on U.S.-China tariff talks as we've seen. So we'll have more to report on that when we get back together next week. I appreciate your thoughts, and certainly we'll let you know what the Fed's done. You'll know by then, but we'll talk about what it means.